Oh, let's take a breath together. Our theme for the year, life is for living. Just say yes. Life is for living. Just say yes. I'll say it again, life is for living. Just say yes. And that's what we're doing here today. It's just saying yes. We're saying yes to a new way of being. Here as a community, we're saying yes to a new way of bringing our Sunday service to you. We're saying yes to God. We're just saying yes. And whatever it is God would have us do, we're saying yes to that. Our theme for the month has been finding God in everything. Finding God in everything. That's so important right now, finding God in everything. And just as the song just said, we know that God is wherever I am, everywhere we are, God is. And sometimes as we walk through this world, walk through this life, we tend to forget that. And so this month we've been talking over and over about finding God in everything. And I call that a revolutionary way of living. Finding God in everything is a revolutionary way. It's also an evolutionary way of living because we are evolving to the next level, even though it doesn't feel that way. And it takes a revolutionary to find God in everything, particularly in all the things that are going on in the world with us today. And so we've looked at finding God through the gateway of wisdom, and we've looked at the doorway of compassion. And then last week we looked at the portal of authenticity. And today we're looking at the path of transition. The path of transition. The path of transition leads us to God. The path of transition, God is on that path. God is in that path. God is that path of transition. And so that's what we have to keep in mind as we go through this process of putting one foot in front of the other day by day by day as we go through this turbulent time, this time that's unprecedented in our lives. And so I invite you to just take a breath and just be right where you are right here, right now, this morning. As we look at this idea of transition, transition is a process. It's a way of getting from one place to the next, from the what was to the what is to become. That's what transition is all about. Transition is different from change. Change is more of an external. It's more of an external thing that happens. Something happens, you want to change it to something else, and that's the way that change happens. You want to change one organization to another type of organization, or one home to the next home, or whatever the case may be. That's what change is about. But transition is more of an internal process. It's an internal process. It's something that happens within each of us as we go through that process of change. That's what transition is all about. And transition is that if we think that change freaks us out, transition really, really, really does. It scares us. It makes us afraid, and that's what's happening right now. Our world has changed already. Our world has changed. It will never go back to being the way it was. And so what happens for us in that period of transition is that we try to hold on to where we were, and that keeps us from getting to where we're going. We try to hold on to who we were, and that keeps us from becoming who God wants us to be, how God wants to express in and through and as each one of us. And so that's what makes transitions difficult, is that we are holding on as we sometimes walk the path of transition, and sometimes we are dragged kicking and screaming down that path of transition. But either way, we got to go there. Either way, we got to go along with it. There's nothing we can do about it. That's what makes transition difficult. That's what makes transition scary. That's what makes transition just scary, because it's out of the realm. It seems to be out of the realm of our control, our ability to control it. And so we just go along with it. We just go along with it. We just go along with it. And so I invite you, first of all, now to take a breath. Just breathe. We got to do a lot of that during these days coming up. We got to just breathe, because breathing keeps us in the moment. Breathing keeps us in the present. Breathing reminds us that the power and the presence of God is right where we are, right here, right now, always. And when we take that breath, we can move into that place of just knowing. We don't know anything else, but that's all we ever need to know, is that power and that presence of God is right where we are, right here and right now. And we take that breath over, and we take that breath over, and we take that breath over again. just keeping in mind that transitions have three parts. They have an ending, and then they have chaos, and then they have new beginnings. The middle part is called the chaos part. You know, there's an ending because whatever was going on before ends. That's the first part of transition. When we get into the midst of it, that's where the confusion can be. That's where the fear can be. That's where the terror can be. That's where the stuff comes up. That's what's called the goo. You know, we get in that goo. And we get in that goo, and it feels like molasses, trying to get out of it. But, you know, once we just be in that molasses and be in that molasses and be in that molasses, you know, on the other side, there's a new beginning, because you have to keep in mind that nothing lasts forever. Nothing lasts forever. Everything must change. Everything must change. Everything passes. And no matter how long this period that we're going through lasts, it's going to pass. It's going to pass. So what we have to keep in mind is that right now, something has ended. Life as we knew it has ended. Right now, we're in the chaos period. And you know, I was thinking about this earlier, and I analogized it to moving. You know, when you move from one house to another, or one office to another, or whatever, you pack up everything and you get everything neatly in boxes and whatever, and that's ending wherever it was you were at that time. And so that comes to an end, and then the moving truck comes and they put all your boxes in the new place and all your stuff in the new place, and then they leave. And then you can't find anything. And then you're wondering, where did I put I thought, sure, I would have recognized this box. I thought that I left this particular thing out so that I could find it, or whatever the case may be. But once you start unpacking, that's when the chaos comes up. That's when the confusion comes up. That's when the disorder appears. All of that. That's what transition is about, because you're going through that phase of transition. You're not where you want to be. You haven't gotten to the new beginnings yet, because you're still in that mass of confusion, mass of chaos, mass of disorder. And we walk through it one box at a time. We walk through it one item at a time. We walk through it one step at a time. We walk through it one breath at a time. And then we put away one thing at a time. We put away one thing at a time. We put away one thing at a time. And then all of a sudden, you look up, and you're in your new place. You're ready to begin your new life. You're unconcerned about where's the nearest dry cleaners. You're unconcerned about, oh, how do I get to the drugstore? You know, all those things we have to know when we first move. Those things become a way of life for us. They become things that we get used to. They become things that we adjust to, that we adapt to. And that's what I'm saying about this period that we're going through right now. This period that we're going through right now, just keeping in mind that, yes, this is very uncomfortable. Yes, this feels really, really scary. And do you know that things can feel scary to us without us being in fear? Do you know that there's a difference in things being scary and being in fear, walking around in fear? There's a difference, because when we're operating out of places of fear, then we're operating out of place of separation, of sensing our separation from God and not recognizing that God is right where we are. It can still be scary, but we still operate from a place of knowingness, from a place of certainty, from a place of oneness, from a place of knowing that there's nothing that can separate me from God in this moment, or God from me in this moment. And no matter how scared I may be, I don't have to walk this walk alone. There's that which is guiding me. There's that which is directing me. There's that which is always right where I am. There's that which is protecting me. There's that which is directing me. There's that which is. And what we want to do is to always be in that isness that is God. Always aware of that isness that is God. Always aware that that isness is everywhere present. That we live and we move and we have our being in it, and it lives and moves and has its being in each one of us. And so when we can keep coming back to that truth, we keep coming back to that truth over and over and over again, then we walk this path of transition much more easily, because we know that we're not walking it alone. We know that we are never walking alone. And in addition to knowing that God is always with us, the presence of God is always with us, we know that we are walking this together as a community. We know that we are walking this together as a race, a human race. We know that we are walking this together in this place of oneness. If anything ever brought us to oneness, I would say it's a situation that's happening now, because it's a common thing that's happening to each and every person. Everyone's affected by it. And we become aware of the fact that we're in this life together. We're in this life together. We are aware of our unity. We are aware of the fact that we have to work together. We have to help each other. We have to be in that place of not them and us, because illness or disease of any kind knows no them and us. It just knows itself, and it just keeps on moving. However, it knows no distinction. It does not make any distinctions. And so that's where we have to be, in that place of just knowing that we are all one. We are all created in the image and likeness and out of God itself. We are all in the presence of God always. And God is always right where we are, always. That's what we have to keep in mind. So as we do this, as we walk through this world, as we go through these times, keeping our hearts open, keeping our minds open, being aware of others, being aware of connecting, making sure that we are connecting with each other. I've been going out to a couple of stores early in the mornings, and people have been so nice. People have been so kind, people helping each other, people speaking, people talking to each other, keeping our distance, mind you, but still connecting with each other is what I have noticed a lot of: connections, a recognition of each other as we go through this time. And so I invite you to stay in that place of connection, to stay in that place of knowing that all is well, to stay in that place of knowing that all is God. And a couple of things I want you to do. I want you to bring the allness and the fullness of who you are to each and every moment. Be all of who you are in every moment, everything you do. That means that you got to stay in the moment. That means you got to be fully present. And rather than complaining about, I'm at home and how much longer am I going to be here, or I'm tired of watching TV, or I can't find anything to do, or the kids are home and they're driving me crazy, or whatever the case may be, rather than complaining, see what it is that you can bring to this moment. To this moment. This is an opportunity for us to tap into divine creativity. Do you know that there's so much creativity around? Because God is creativity itself. And when we tap into that oneness, that onlyness, that isness, that is God, then we tap into that creativity, and we can find all kinds of things to do, all kinds of things to create. Maybe you get a chance to write that book that you were going to write, or publish that book that you've already written, or do some project that you've been saying all along that you wanted to do and have not done, or complete a project that you started, whatever the case may be. Whatever the case may be, now is the time to come home to yourself. Now is the time to come home to yourself, to take a breath, to look at this thing called life. Look at your life now. How do I want my life to look? It doesn't look like it used to. How do I want it to look going forward? As I walk through this path, this transition, how do I want my life to look? What do I want my life to be like? And then in keeping with that, we have to keep in mind that everything you do, everything you think, everything you say affects how your life is going to be. So you have to be mindful of what you're saying, mindful of what you're thinking, mindful of whether or not you're complaining about having to stay home or not being able to go out to eat, or whatever the case may be. Just being mindful of those things and saying, is this really getting me to the life that I want? Is this really bringing me to that place of peace? Because I think what each of us wants right now is peace and peace of mind. Peace and peace of mind. Think about that. Peace of mind right now would be huge. Peace of mind, and we can have that. I tell you all the time about fastening our seatbelts. We can have that when we fasten our spiritual seatbelts and do our practice, do our meditation, do our prayer work, do those things that we know to do to get us through those times of difficulty. I was thinking of Fenwick Holmes. Ernest Holmes' brother wrote a book entitled Ernest Holmes, His Life and Times. And in that book, he talks about the 1918 flu epidemic. And the fact that, people were dying, people were sick all over the world, and there was so much, in particular in California. California was devastated, and that's where they lived. And more people were dying. More and more people were sick. More and more people were, businesses were closed. People were walking the streets with masks on, just like we see today. That was happening in 1918. And the Metaphysical Institute that he and Ernest Holmes had was doing prayer work. They were doing their treatment. And they started doing more and more treatment, and the people that they were treating, they never lost one. Of all the people that they were treating, they had no failures. People were getting well, people were getting better, they didn't have any deaths come up or whatever. They were doing the work. They were doing the work through that influenza epidemic. There was a pandemic, because it was worldwide, but they were doing the work during that time. And Fenwick even talks about a nurse that they loaned to a military base where some of the soldiers were going through the same thing and they were dying. And the nurse went in and she was doing the practices that she'd learned at the Institute. She was doing the prayer work. And there was only one soldier that passed away. But all the people that she worked with as a result of doing the work that she was doing, practicing the presence, practicing the principles, practicing the truth that she knew, standing in that saved so many lives. And that's what we have to do. We have to do our own prayer work. We have to do our own practicing the principles that we know. We have to utilize our own tools that we already have. We have to do those things that we know work, or that we say we know work. We have to do those things over and over and over again and stand in the knowing. Stand in the knowing that this is the truth that I know. Stand in the knowing that no matter how fearful I may feel, no matter how scary this may seem, no matter what I may be thinking about, complaining, whatever, I know that if I change my thinking, I change my life. If I change my thinking, I change the situation. If I change my thinking, then everything changes. And so we start with changing our thinking, and then we start to think about, what can I do? I can pray. I can do spiritual mind treatment. I can change the situation. And by completely turning within, by completely doing that which we know to do over and over and over again. And so that's what I'm inviting you to do today. I'm inviting you to really pause, take a deep breath, take a step back. And as I said, bring the allness and the fullness of who you are to every situation in which you find yourself. And then look at how you can make a difference in the world. What can you do to make a difference? Because do you know that changing your thinking, me changing my thinking, changes the world? Because when I change my thinking, I change my actions, I change my beliefs, I change the vibration around me. And when I change my vibration, the vibration all around me and the vibration of the world changes as a result also. And so we have to keep in mind that we make a difference. And we want to continue to make a difference. And as I said, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And so we want to keep moving forward together. Keep moving forward together, not moving into a place of otherness, but moving into a place of oneness and walking forward in that oneness, because we are walking forward in the one, always. This is what the path of transition looks like. It looks like walking forward in the one. It looks like fastening our seatbelts. It's just like if you were taking a flight, and when we get ready, when the plane gets ready to take off, you fasten those seatbelts, and then when you get part of the way up, we hit that turbulence, and then the shaking starts. And then the bumpiness starts, and it gets pretty scary, but the last thing you would do is take your seatbelts off. And the plane keeps going up, and it's going through that period of chaos. It's going through that period of chaos until it gets to that level, to that altitude that it can fly smoothly and easily, where there is no turbulence, where everything starts new once we get to that place. And that's where we are now. If we get to the middle where there's turbulence, everybody on that plane's in it together. That's where we are now. Nobody's going to say, I'm getting out, I'm out of here. They're just not going to do that. We are all in this together. What can we do together in going through this turbulence that's happening on this plane? Nobody's going to get up and run up and down the aisle, and nobody's going to let them do that. What we would do is sit and fasten our seatbelts. That's what I'm suggesting that we do here today. That as we walk through this time, don't get up and run up and down the aisles. Don't complain about, I was talking to a friend a couple of days ago, and she was complaining. As soon as she heard my voice, she started complaining about, I can't go anywhere. You know, I can't even go to the store and get this. I can't even do, and I'm thinking, but none of us can. We're all in this. We all have the same restrictions. It's not happening just to you. This is not something that's happening to you. It's not happening to us. We have to move out of that victim mode because we're not victims. This is something that's just happening. It's just happening. And what we have to do is to develop our consciousness so that we experience it in a different way, experience it according to our level of consciousness. That's what happens. Our experiences are dictated by our level of consciousness. And so when we see that our experiences are not where we want them to be, it's time for us to do the deep work. It's time for us to do the things that we know. It's time for us to put aside the complaining. It's time for us to put aside the judgment. It's time for us to put aside those negative Facebook and social media posts. I went on Facebook last night to post that we were here today, having service today, and I haven't been on for a while because sometimes just some of the posts, random posts that I see are so disturbing because there's so much otherness and so much judgment and so much criticism and so much whatever, that condemning and all that is disturbing to even be there, just the vibration of it. We can shift the vibration of that. We can shift the vibration of that. How can you, when you go on Facebook, when you go on Twitter, when you go on some of the other social media things you do, ask yourself, how can I make a difference today? How can I post something that's going to be uplifting? How can I post something that's going to be inspirational? How can I post something that's going to really make someone feel better, in addition to making me feel better, but making someone feel better? How can I contribute something to this situation, to this world? How can I be, as I said last week, how can I be a beneficial presence right here on this social media platform that I'm on? That's really, really, really important. And you guys hear me talk about social media a lot, but it's because I see how it could be such a benefit rather than using it for negativity. Let's see how we can use it as a benefit. Let's see how we can uplift each other. A way of connecting is what we're doing. And connecting at the heart space. Connecting at the heart space. How can we check in on each other? How can we find out how we're doing or encourage each other as we walk through this time? Because we don't know what the days ahead are going to hold. We keep hearing all the predictions, and I encourage you not to listen to all of them on a loop. Don't listen to them over and over. Once you hear them once for the day, they don't change that drastically during the day, so you don't have to listen to them several times over and over and over again, because all that does is lower your vibration, and when it lowers your vibration, you start to attract things that are of a lower vibration. So what you want to do is listen to it, get the information that you need, find out what it is you need to do if there's something different that needs to happen. And then, if you're going to be on social media, post those things that are encouraging. Post those things that are uplifting. Post those things that make you a beneficial presence online. That's what we want to be wherever we go, whatever we do. Being a beneficial presence, being one who it is evident that God is working through. It is evident that you are allowing God to work through you. It's evident that you are aware of your oneness with God, and with your oneness with God, your oneness with each other. And as we do that, then we are walking this path of transition much more easily. We're walking this path of transition much more awake. We're walking this path of transition much more in oneness because we're all walking it together. And so I invite you to take a breath, And as I said last week, let this be a sacred time. Let this be a sacred time for us, for when we go inward, a time for reflection, a time for looking at life and how we'd like our lives to be, a time for how would I like this world to be. And if I want this world to change and I want it to be different, it has to start with me. And that's the truth that I know. And that's the truth that we all know. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. It can only begin with me. Let there be love on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be trust on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be faith on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be forgiveness on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be compassion on earth, and let it begin with me. Whatever it is you want to experience, let it begin with you. We must let it begin with each one of us, because each of us has a responsibility as a human citizen. Each of us has a responsibility to live our best lives. Each of us has a responsibility to be the very best we can be. Each of us has a responsibility to walk this walk with ease and with grace, so that those who walk with us can also walk with ease and with grace and with love and with the awareness that the power and the presence of God is right where we are. And so I invite you to just turn within and to just allow yourself to sense into that presence. Allow yourself to feel that presence within you. Allow yourself to know the truth that the presence is right where we are always. And so as we take this breath together this day, we walk this path of transition with the intention of living our best life right here and right now, without excuses, living our best life, because now is the only time we have. We can't say, when this is over, I'm gonna. What can I do right now? What can I do? How can I live my best life? How can I be my best self right here and right now in this moment of transition? How can I think my best thoughts? How can I exercise my best beliefs? How can I best serve in this moment? How can I do this right here and right now? Because here is the only place, and now is the only time that we have. And so I invite you, don't waste the time. Time is all we have. Time is all we have. And the only time is now. Now is the only moment we have. So remember to do what is before you to do. Don't worry about what's going to happen, how long this is going to last. Is it going to be 8 weeks? It's going to be 12 weeks. It's going to be 4 weeks. Do you think it'll be over by May? Now is the only time we have. Because even if you knew it was going to last 12 weeks, what will you do between now and 12 weeks from now? We still have to walk it. The only way to go through transition is to go through it. We still have to walk through it, one step at a time, putting one foot in front of the other, taking one action after another, always knowing that there's that presence, there's that power, there's that isness that is God, that is changeless, that is always right where we are. And the more we are open to it, the more we allow it to guide us, the more we allow it to direct us, the more we know that we are on firm footing. The more we know that all indeed is well, for all indeed is God. And we move into that place of trust, and we move into that place of knowing the truth, that everywhere I am, God is. Everywhere I am, God is. No matter what's going on out here, no matter what the appearance, everywhere I am, God is. That's all we ever need to know, is that God is right where I am, right now. So let's turn within in this moment. Just taking a breath together. As we turn within to that place of knowing and sensing and feeling God's presence right here, right now, right where I am. Just knowing that this power, this presence is the only power, the only presence, the only life, the only mind, the only activity, the only breath is God. And this onlyness is my life. This onlyness lives and moves and has its being in me. This onlyness is that within which I live and move and have my being. This onlyness, this onlyness, this onlyness is my very life. This onlyness is the life of us all. And so just in this moment of knowing that truth, I speak this word this day. For each of us, just speaking a word of wholeness, speaking a word of trust, speaking a word of faith, speaking a word of oneness. Just knowing that we are each made in the image and likeness and out of God itself. and that we operate from that place as we move forward, releasing and letting go of anything that will make us appear to be separate, releasing our sense of separation, releasing our fear, releasing our doubt, releasing our anxiety, releasing all that stuff, and just allowing ourselves to breathe and return to the truth that we know over and over and over again. And as we do this, healing is happening within each one of us. Healing is happening all around us. Healing is happening in this world around us because we stand in the truth that we know, and it goes forward from us. And so I'm speaking the word this day for all those who are affected by the virus, all those who are affected by illness, just knowing that right where each of them is, God is in the midst of everything that's going on, that every cell, organ, tissue function of their body, temples are filled with that radiant healing presence of God. Know that there's nothing that's stronger than God. There's nothing that's bigger than God. And so we keep returning to that truth, and as we return to that truth, I know that there's nothing that can stand that is in opposition to God, that is different from God. So I'm calling forth that presence in the midst of everything, in the midst of all of us who are affected by what's going on in the world today, by this virus, by whatever it is we may name it, whatever it is. God is in the midst of it, and healing is happening everywhere. Wholeness is revealing itself everywhere. And so we release and let go of those things that don't serve and keep returning to the truth that we know, that God is. And so as I open this circle of prayer, I'm going to pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer. You may speak their names silently or aloud, and you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is right where each of them is, blessing and keeping them. I know indeed that God is in the midst of every situation, every circumstance, every event. No matter what you call it, God is in the midst of it. And we open our hearts and open our minds so that we get to experience that presence of God everywhere. And so I simply say thank you, Father, Mother God. Thank you, infinite presence. Thank you, Divine Mother. I know indeed that all is well. For I know indeed that all is God. I just allow it to be now. And so it is.